Army Special Forces veteran and chief strategist for the Middle East Forum, Jim Hansen, and Israeli Special Ops veteran Aaron Cohen. Thank you both for being with us here today. Aaron, I'll start with you. You're here with me in L.A. I want to pick up on this thing that President Trump said about they tell you one thing to your face, the Iranians, and then they go out to the press and say, no, we're going to keep enriching nuclear uranium.
So that's the two faces of the Middle East. We have an expression in Hebrew. That is the language, Will. So here's what happens behind closed doors. They're going to talk. But the only reason, I think it's important for everybody to understand this, the only reason why the IRGC is sitting down in Pakistan right now in the next couple of hours with J.D. Vance is because they were forced to by pressure. And pressure creates diamonds. This regime for almost 50 years has been the bully of the Middle East, attacking hundreds, if not thousands of U.S. troops. And now we're finally seeing them backed into a corner. But keep in mind, thousands of nodes have been hit over the last 6 weeks. They've got nothing but have to sit down and negotiate. And if it wasn't for the president, and if it wasn't for that Israeli intelligence working with the U.S. military, we would not be here today. Nobody should get it twisted. This was pressure driven by the U.S.
Jim, do you agree with that? From the outside, it's really hard to go into these negotiations expecting some level of optimism, the way the Iranians speak. But as Aaron points out, the way they behave behind closed doors is very different than the bravado they give to the public.
Yeah, talk is cheap. You know, they can say what they want. They can go ahead and bluster and try to put the American team off balance by making a bunch of demands nobody really expects to even get considered. But in the end, they don't have a lot left. Their economy is in a shambles. You know, they barely hung on when they had to slaughter, tens of thousands of their population to stop the last uprising. So they don't have a whole lot of strength at home. Now, that doesn't mean they're beaten. But at this point, they have to decide, do we want to, go ahead and take on the last most powerful strikes the U.S. can do, or potentially some other ways to damage them? You could shut down the Strait of Hormuz ourselves and cut off their oil flow. You could debank them and go ahead and stop them from being able to use any of the banking systems and starve the regime. They don't have a whole lot of power, and I think they're going to be a little bit more amenable to the actual negotiation.
I actually want to ask this question to both of you, Jim and Aaron. I'll start with you, Jim, on this. And I want to bring in the voice of opposition. Let's play devil's advocate for just one moment. If you were watching a separate network, if you opened a newspaper based out of New York, you would hear that the United States is in a quagmire, that we are losing this war, that Trump has lost this war. Were you sitting with someone making that argument? What would you say to them, Jim?
I would say that that's the usual thing that the media does, is to oppose, people like Trump who are upsetting the world order. They have a agenda they want to push. You have to look at what's actually happened. You can't lose your entire military, your conventional military strength and then claim to be winning a war. What they've got is an asymmetric capability to cause trouble in the Strait of Hormuz, which is important, and they still have some enriched uranium, which they're going to give up one way or another. What they do not have is a way to win this war if they just think they're going to, string the negotiating team along. The U.S. will put whatever pressure is necessary on them to go ahead and bring this to a successful conclusion.
Aaron?
I agree with Jim, but here's where I'm at with that. I'll say it. CNN, any of these other groypers out there, anyone else who's so revolved in Trump derangement syndrome to not be able to put their finger on the reality of the operational ground situation, Will. 16,000 sorties in the last month. Over 600 nodes have been hit, including missile defense batteries, drone launch sites. Over 200 of the IRGC's top leadership killed by Israeli intelligence packages. The lights have been off. The internet's been shut off for the last month. Nobody has been able to see the amount of damage, with the exception of that little CNN crew that slipped in there. But I can assure you they did not get taken to all of the different strike sites. The fact is, Iran has been crippled. The only reason why they're at the table today in this moment is because they don't have a choice. And that's where I'm at with that. The fact is, if they do not play ball and they do not open up this strait and give the word, they are going to get thumped again, and they should.
And Aaron, you pointed out to me that once the lights get flipped back on, once their internet is now free and available, the world will see, and you agree with President Trump, this is already victory.
I think the moment the airstrike, yes, I feel like the victory was in the airstrikes. The 16,000 sorties will. The 10-year pushback of the #1 state sponsor of terror in the history of modern warfare. Over 90 million hostages literally being held by an Islamic State regime, these mullahs. The victory's already happened. We already have a completely different battlefield emerging in the Middle East. And once this thing gets wrapped up, could be a question of weeks or months, we're going to see a completely different space here.
Okay, really quickly, last to you, Jim. But the United States does require 2 conditions for this war to end: a free and open Strait of Hormuz and 0 nuclear enrichment from Iran. What is your level of optimism that that can be extracted by Vice President Vance?
I think it's still a stretch to get to both of those in this negotiation. I have a feeling it could go badly and things go ahead to another round. But that doesn't mean that in the end, they're going to give up that uranium and ships are going to flow. They don't really get a vote in the final end of this.
Right. Jim Hansen, Aaron Cohen, fascinating conversation. Thank you both for being with us.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.